Here's some of what President Joe Biden had to say.
In fact, our economy created over 6.5 million new jobs just last year. More jobs in 1 year than ever before in the history of the United States of America. The economy grew at a rate of 5.7 last year, the strongest growth rate in 40 years. And the first step in bringing fundamental change to our economy that hasn't worked for working people in this nation for too long. For the past 40 years, we were told that tax break for those at the top and benefits would trickle down and everyone would benefit. But that trickle-down theory led to a weaker economic growth, lower wages, bigger deficits, and a widening gap between the top and everyone else in nearly a century. Look, Vice President Harris and I ran for office, and I realize we have fundamental disagreements on this, but ran for office with a new economic vision for America. Invest in America, educate Americans, grow the workforce, build the economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down, because we know when the middle class grows, the poor have a way up and the wealthy do very well. The most fundamental right in America is the right to vote and have it counted. And look, it's under assault. In state after state, new laws have been passed, not only to suppress the vote, we've been there before, but to subvert the entire election. We can't let this happen. Tonight I call on the Senate to pass the Freedom to Vote Act, pass the John Lewis Act, Voting Rights Act. And while you're at it, pass the Disclose Act so Americans know who's funding our election. We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police, it's to fund the police. Fund them. Fund them. Fund them with resources and training. Resources and training they need to protect our communities. I ask Democrats and Republicans alike to pass my budget and keep our neighborhoods safe. And we'll do everything in my power to crack down on gun trafficking, of ghost guns that you can buy online, assemble at home, no serial numbers, can't be traced. I ask Congress to pass proven measures to reduce gun violence. Pass universal background checks. Why should anyone on the terrorist list be able to purchase a weapon? Why? Why? And folks, ban assault weapons with high-capacity magazines that hold up to 100 rounds. You think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests? Look, repeal the liability shield that makes gun manufacturers the only industry in America that can't be sued. The only one. Imagine had we done that with the tobacco manufacturers. These laws don't infringe on the Second Amendment. They save lives.
All right, folks, let's get right into it with my guest, LaTosha Brown. She's the co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Linda Sarsour, she's the co-founder of Until Freedom. We also have on our panel A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association Political Action Committee, Monique Presley, legal analyst, crisis manager, Lauren Victoria Burke, writer with the NNPA, as well as the GRIO. All right, LaTosha and Linda, I want to start with the two of you. And so, LaTosha, you, the president there, he did mention the issue of voting rights. You heard that. You also heard and saw the reaction from people over this whole idea of fund the police. Democrats have been blaming defund the police on their losses in different ways. Your assessment of what you heard last night, the president speaking to the nation.
You know, I had to actually put his speech in perspective. Actually, I think that his speech, if you were looking at a speech to neutralize the talking points of the Republicans, he did a good job at that. He actually neutralized and protected his interests around, or at least not giving them any talking points. It was actually really disappointing not to hear a stronger statement around as he talked over the voting rights. I thought he made some good points around the economy and some of the things that he had done and brought in the economy. But the one piece that he brought that I thought was really unnecessary, but it was also, I think, a part of that appeal to this moderate Republican that never shows up for anything progressive, was this whole notion of the defund the police. That the idea, it's ironic that earlier in his speech, the first 15 minutes of his speech, he talked about Ukraine, and he talked about the financial, withholding resources from Russia because Russia was not acting right, because Putin was using his power to abuse the Ukrainians and undermining their democracy. And so it's interesting that on one hand, he set out and laid out this accountability, that in order to actually hold one accountable, it is to actually impact their funding. But here we are. But then next, he says that the police, who we've seen killed Black people, unarmed Black folks in this country, as a matter of fact, as they are sleeping, that they actually should get more funding. So while, if you're asking me if it was effective at neutralizing a Republican talking point, I do think it was effective. That if it was, I think that it further alienates a base of voters that really have to be activated, that are actually the margin between who's going to come out in the midterm elections or not. I think that it was actually unnecessary. In many ways, it was disrespectful to the very movement of people who actually helped to put him in office. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if we think that financial sanctions will actually help Putin change his behavior, why do we not think financial sanctions, right, and literally redirecting the resources will actually create a more just and equitable justice system in this country and holding the police accountable?
See, Linda, here's the thing that is very interesting. The attitude in this country is more money, more money, more money, more money, more resources for law enforcement. When you look at the fact that we spend more money on national defense than the next 10 countries combined, when you look at how Republicans responded to a $1.5 trillion Build Back Better plan, which was $1.5 trillion over 10 years, yet approved, Democrats and Republicans, without any real pushback, a $700 billion annual expenditure for the Defense Department. And that seems to always be the reaction in this country. Oh, more money for the cops. You got the unions out there who push that as well. But explain to me, with all the money they've been getting thus far, why unarmed people are still getting shot? Why are cops still beating the hell out of people, resulting in cities having to spend billions of dollars on settlements? Why are we still having, again, individuals who are being paralyzed and folks being impacted? And so folks don't want to deal with that. Boebert jumps up, she yells, but the 13 troops who were killed in Afghanistan, should any of us jumped up and yelled about the Black folks who have been shot and killed by cops? That, to me, is what was striking when I heard that last night.
Oh, I agree 100%, Roland. For me, the speech was consistent with the Democratic Party, which is out of step with the organizers, out of step with the movement, and out of step with the most marginalized people who continue to come out and vote for them during midterm elections, general elections, and really whenever they need them. The bottom line here is that we always have money for wars. And you know me, I come from a lineage of people and a heritage where people that pray like me and look like me and speak the languages that I speak have been murdered at the hands of the United States government and our foreign policy. So we always find money for more guns and more tanks and more airplanes. But for some reason, we can't find money for health care. We can't find money for mental health services. I'll give you an example, Roland. I'm from New York City. The New York Police Department is the largest police force in America by far. In fact, our police department here in New York's budget is larger than our Department of Education, Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of Transportation, Department of Sanitation, Department of everything. Every department, if we added all the budgets together, are still smaller than the New York Police Department. And we still see an increase in gun violence across this country. We continue to see crime rise across this country, especially during and post this pandemic. And where the question that we keep asking people when they keep saying more money for cops is show us the data. Show me that more money for police officers is what decreases crime. Show me where the data is that tells me that the highest funded police departments are actually the ones that have the lowest crime. And we don't see that. We have not seen that data. What happened yesterday during that speech for me personally, as an organizer, as a racial justice activist, is Joe Biden trying to play to everybody. But he also knows, and he knows that we know, that he actually has power over some of the things he said. If Joe Biden wants us to come out during the midterm elections, if the Democratic Party wants us out, cancel student debt or cancel at least some of it, which the president does have power to do. He talked about lowering prescription drugs. Stop putting the blame on everybody else and tell the American people that you have the power through executive order to do that. He has the power to expunge marijuana convictions of people across this country. There is power in the president's office. And so talking to me during a State of Union without putting some actions is not going to move our people. So when we say defund the police, and we want to keep saying it because it's provocative and we know that, it's to engage people in the conversation. We say defund the police and reinvest in mental health, in healthcare services, in jobs, in infrastructure in our communities. And we promise you, if you try it, you will see low crime, you will see thriving communities, and we will not need police. Police come after the crime was committed. When gun violence happens, people call the cops. The people are already hurt, they're already dead. And so the fact that we keep calling the cops when there's homeless people, we keep calling the cops when, we're having a fight with our neighbor. And oftentimes with Black and brown people, especially in mental health case services, we end up with a dead family member. It's not working for us, Roland, and the president continues to speak against us, and then they'll call us and tell us, hey, what you're doing for us in Georgia, we need you in Pennsylvania, we need you in Michigan. And then when people turn their backs on the Democratic Party, we want them to know it's not our fault, it is your fault.
Scott, to that point, what Linda just said, this was a tweet that Sherilyn Ifill, of course, leader of the LDF, this is what she tweeted. She said, where is the data to support this is the answer to current public safety challenges? Do the highest funded departments have the lowest crime rates? Are those departments more effective in solving violent crimes? Do they have higher public confidence? This is political framing, not answers.
And it's from an historical perspective. I agree with my sister who just spoke right there. She's absolutely right. I'm a former prosecutor from New York City. But here's the headwind. And listen, and I'm going to say something that you all know. When you poll Black people, brown people, and white people on the phrase defund the police, the result is 80 to 90% of those voters say they don't want to defund the police. They don't even get to the dialogue part. And last night you heard Biden begin at his core that he is a moderate. And he and the White House have decided that they believe that their best shot at neutralizing the loss of the House and Senate in 2022, and perhaps even in 2024 for the White House, that it is the appeal to the moderates, because he can't get any progressive agenda through. At least it's stalled. And so now last night, he announced and triggered, essentially, that he was going to stick with his moderate agenda. That means he's going to lose. The Democrats are going to lose because Black and brown people want police reform passed. Didn't hear much about that last night. They want the Voting Rights Act passed. This White House and Senate and House can't get it done. And so while Black and brown people have nowhere else to go, they do have a choice in whether they come out and they're energized. The Democrats are going to lose in 2022, not because the Republicans are energized, but because the Democratic base isn't energized, because this White House hadn't kept its promise.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?